Welcome into the Rob Bro Show. I am Rob Bro. I am the host. You are the co-host. You can co-host today by commenting on the starting line chat line. Right over there. Starting line chat line brought to you by Starting Line Counseling. We're also in the Diversified Lenders Studios. Carson, how you doing? You're muted. Come on, man.
That's how I'm doing today, Rob. That's how I'm doing. I'm just need to be muted today. No,
same.
It's rainy, dreary
It
outside
is.
in Lubbock today.
Froggy.
It feels like that kind of day. Yeah.
I had some technical difficulties yesterday, so we're overacting today on Tuesday. The bug guy is supposed to come to this complex at some point today, so we'll see if he knocks on the door in the middle of this. If so, I guess I'll go and let Carson take over for a second, or just ignore him. I don't have bugs right now, so we'll see. It's odd they're doing a bug spray in January. I thought that was
yeah.
I guess it's preventative, but all the bugs are dead right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're in hibernation or whatever. They're in your walls. They just don't want to come out.
Okay. Well, they can stay there.
They got to be warm somehow.
Yeah. Well, good for them. Let's see. Let's start with the basketball from the weekend. Overreaction. Greatest Coach McCaslin win of all time so far this weekend against BYU, coming down from 17. Much to the chagrin of some people on Twitter. But another great win for Coach McCaslin. They're calling him McGasland, as they have since the beginning. But they're also calling him Magic Mac now. I believe that's a John Rosting thing. Pretty incredible run to turn that one around on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, look, in the first half, it didn't look great, obviously. I mean, BYU shot the absolute lights out of the building in the first half, but you knew, take the Houston game aside, because Houston was just on a mission at home that night. There wasn't a whole lot you were going to be able to do that night anyways. It was just one of those games where, the home team is one of the top teams in the country, has a chance to be a number one seed, and they took care of business at home and ran you out of the gym for the most part. But you come home, and to be down 16 at the half, it's not a good place to be. But you felt like that Texas Tech was kind of in the game, because they shrunk the lead down a little bit, but then BYU hit a couple threes in the first half of play. You didn't shoot it well at all in the first half. You knew if you could just get Pop going in the second half, if you could get Warren Washington the ball, and for him to play some defense on the other side and not allow second chance opportunities, because second chance opportunities were huge for BYU in the first half. You knew Texas Tech could have a chance to get back in it once they got the thing under 10, and they made that run early in that second half. You're like, okay, now you feel pretty good about it. Can they get this thing done? And they're able to figure it out. That the defensive pressure steps up. BYU doesn't shoot it as well from the outside because there's hands and faces now. I thought the work on the screens, on hedging ball screens, was really good in the second half. Just the way that they played in the first half on the defensive end versus the way they played in the second half on the defensive end was completely different. The way they hedge screens instead of switch screens and all of those things, it just, to the common fan who doesn't know that much about basketball, it just looked like Texas Tech played better than BYU in the second half.
Yeah.
Texas Tech, they played better, yeah, but they outplayed BYU in the second half, where BYU did that to you in the first half. Texas Tech is just a better basketball team, I think, than BYU. So when you outplay them, you can win a second half better than they did in the first half.
And if you could choose to shoot 67% from three in a certain half, you'd love to do in the second half, and that's what
Yeah,
Texas Tech
yeah.
did. Just an unreal shooting performance. The crowd, shout out to the USA. I think they made a big difference.
Yeah,
Caleb
big.
Rogers and Taj Brooks were credited at halftime as kind of pumping up the crowd. Joey McGuire there in the background of some shots from the legendary John Moore. Just a great overall performance on Saturday. And if the season ended today, Pop Isaacs, top 2 and maybe not 2 Big 12 Player of the Year candidates.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely in the top 3 right now. That's for sure. And when you're on the first place team, a team that's at the top of the conference, that's what gives you a leg up in the Player of the Year, Big 12 Player of the Year category as well. And if he keeps doing this, obviously, I don't think he's going to score 30 a game, but 20 plus points a game. If he averages that in Big 12 play, I think that's perfectly and should be a reason for him to be a Big 12 Player of the Year. And if he can step it up on the defensive end like he did in the second half as well, I thought he was big on the defensive end for Texas Tech. Had a few steals, got his hand in the passing lanes a few times. I thought that for a guy that is known for his offense, I thought his defense really came to play in the second half. And, even a guy like Joe Toussaint, who didn't have a great game offensively, I thought he was better in the second half defensively and running the show with the offense. So he didn't need to score a ton. He just needed to facilitate and move the ball and get the ball to move. And he did that in the second half. And that's why you got good looks for a guy like Pop Isaacs. And when a guy like Pop Isaacs has a hot hand, you keep feeding him. You find ways to get him off of double screens. You find ways to flare him out off of a screen. Pop is so basketball IQ at the top of his game. Like, there's smart basketball IQ, and then there's like this kind of basketball IQ. And I think that's where Pop Isaacs is. Yeah. His basketball IQ is off the charts.
Fran Fraschilla had a great breakdown of his pick and roll game with Warren Washington. Both had massive performances. Both statistical leaders in the Big 12. Pop Isaacs in conference play through 5 games, 6 games. Texas Tech's Pop Isaacs leading the conference in points per game. Warren Washington in conference play leading the conference in field goal percentage. He's been deadly around the basket, even better than Hunter Dickinson, who is scoring more, but not shooting as efficiently as Warren Washington. Texas Tech's just been really good. And you mentioned it, they're at the top of the standings all alone. They look good. And this is the best start since 2000. I saw 2002, 2003.
Yeah,
for Texas
19
Tech as a season. Best start in the Big 12. Now, you were, I think, 4-0 in 2019 in the Big 12 and then went 0-4.
Yeah, you got to 500,
So we'll see how it goes in the next couple. Road trip to Oklahoma on deck on Saturday.
Two tough road trips back to back.
And then a road trip to Fort Worth. TCU really good at home. Yeah. And it's really hard to play there. You just don't win much in Fort Worth as much as you've won against TCU in the last, 5-6 years. It's been a tough place to play. So it's certainly not as easy to get a victory in Fort Worth as maybe Austin lately, but we'll see.
Even though it's crazy, Fort Worth is, I would say it's probably 65% TCU fans and 45% Texas Tech fans in that building.
Yeah. And some years it's 50-50.
Yeah.
I remember, 20
their first year in the Big 12, it was like 60-40 Texas Tech.
When you went to the Sweet 16, that crowd was 50-50 and TCU won. Yeah. I mean, it sounded like a home crowd in Fort Worth for Texas Tech, and TCU fed off of it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't always work out, but it certainly does help to have the Texas Tech fans there at TCU. But you have to go to, Lloyd Noble first? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Lloyd Noble Center in Oklahoma.
The deadest, weirdest arenas in the Big 12. It's almost like an anti-home court advantage. You're just not used to it, and so it helps. It helps Oklahoma because it's one thing to play in front of like the USA where they're bearing down on you and shaking you to your core. It's loud. It's another thing to play at OU where you can hear a pin drop in the free throw line. So it's just a different atmosphere. Let's see. Elsewhere in the Big 12, Kansas nearly loses again on Big Monday. They get all they want from Cincinnati. They do come out with a victory, but Kansas, just doesn't look great. They've got 4 guys that I think are really highly competitive in the Big 12, but they don't have 7, 8 guys like they normally do. Just seems like a thin team. Kevin McCullough, one of the best players in the country, one of the best players in the Big 12. Hunter Dickinson offensively has been really good. Who else?
Yeah. And they only play, Kansas only plays 7 guys, 6 guys at times. I think at West Virginia, the only guy that came off the bench that played a big number of minutes was Timberlake. He played like 12, 13 minutes somewhere in there. This Kansas team, I said it before the Big 12 slate got kicked off or tipped off for basketball purposes, is that I thought Kansas was head and shoulders like above like there was a tier where Kansas was here, Houston was just below them, and then everybody else like dropped tremendously through that. I think Houston, even though they started off a little rocky, I like the way that their roster lines up. I think Houston is an overall better team, deeper team than Kansas. Kansas just doesn't seem like they, as a team, that they play as well together as we've seen some Bill Self teams play in the past. You don't have that one like super stud either. I mean, Kevin McCullough can be that guy if you want him to be. He has been at times because people were saying, he's the shoe-in for the Big 12 Player of the Year award before the Big 12 slate even got tipped off. So, but KJ Adams has been good. He hasn't been great. I thought he would be great this year for Kansas. He's been great at times in the non-conference. He had a really good non-conference, but in conference play, he just hasn't been a difference maker like I thought he would be. So, Kansas is one of those teams where I think that they'll be at the top of the Big 12 race when it comes to an end. But right now, they just need to figure out some things because you go to West Virginia. I know Morgantown's a tough place to play. Don't get me wrong, but this Kansas team should not lose to West Virginia. I don't care where it's at.
No, they shouldn't. West Virginia's gotten a couple of those so far. So
yeah,
hey, credit to West Virginia, but I don't know. That was a weird result for me. And maybe tells you more about Kansas than it does West Virginia.
I agree. I think that's exactly what it does, Rob. I 100%, especially giving up 91 to West Virginia, who's not very good.
A couple of notes here. This one from Tech Hoops Guy. Warren Washington's played 84% of Texas Tech's Big 12 minutes. The last 7-footer to play 70% of his team's minutes was Udoka Azubuike, who played 71.8% of the minutes back in 2020. Just an incredible stretch for Warren Washington. Is it sustainable? I don't know. Do you need Big Bob Jennings to get more minutes?
I think there will be games where Robert Jennings will have to get more minutes, obviously, because Warren Washington will get in foul trouble like he did at Houston. But we saw what happens whenever that happens is it's not as good for you. It's funny to think because if you still have Cambridge on the roster, is Warren Washington getting this amount of minutes? Is he playing this much in the Big 12? I don't know if he would be because your offensive and style would change a little bit with Cambridge on the floor. But Warren Washington has really been a pleasant surprise for me personally. I didn't know if he could get it done at a high level enough for you to be this competitive in the Big 12. Warren Washington to me has been the best surprise, the best player other than, don't get me wrong, Pop Isaacs is your best player, but I think Warren Washington has been the one that stepped up to the plate, and has exceeded his expectations. I think that some people had of him. I mean, obviously he had more expectations of himself, and so did McCaslin and the staff, but just from the outside looking in, I didn't know if he could do it in the Big 12. I didn't know if he could match the physicality that this league has and do it on a night in and night out basis and be consistent. He has been consistent, other than at Houston where nobody was consistent. Like I said, there's going to be those games in the Big 12 where you just turn it and burn it and forget about it. So we don't care about the Houston game because it is what it is. But Warren Washington has been great this year. And I think if you can play him that many minutes and if he can stay out of foul trouble, he got in foul trouble early in the BYU game as well. I believe he had to come out for a little while, and BYU kind of took advantage of that. But in the second half, he was fantastic. So even though Khalifa kind of murdered you for a little while in the second half, I think he had like 12 straight points for BYU at one point. But that dude, he's not good to look at. He doesn't look like a ball player, but he can play a little bit. So, but yeah, Warren Washington has been great. And if you're going to continue to be this team, I think Texas Tech is going to win this conference. But if you're going to sit at the top of the Big 12 and be part of those top, 5-6 teams, I think you have to have Warren Washington be this guy for the rest of the season.
You cut out of there a little bit. Did you say you thought they were going to win the conference?
No, I said I don't think they will win the conference.
Okay.
No.
You cut out in the middle, so it just sounded like you thought they would win the conference.
No, they won't. I don't think they'll. I think they'll be the top 5 or 6 if they continue this trajectory that they're on right now.
Yeah. Well, if they continue the trajectory, they do win the conference because they are in first place. But
that's fair. But
I understand. Yeah. Let's see. Let's move on. Patrick Mahomes on Sunday afternoon won his 13th playoff game. The only quarterback to ever do it before 30 years old. Undefeated in the divisional and AFC wildcard rounds. 6 seasons as a starter, 6 straight AFC championship appearances, 0 losses in regulation in the AFC championship. And he took a team that had the highest wide receiver drop rate since the 2000 0-16 Browns. They weren't from 2000. I just don't remember what the year was. He took them to the AFC championship game and maybe to the Super Bowl. Just a ridiculous run from Patrick Mahomes. This is his best season with the least help. Distracted Travis Kelce, a bum wide receiver core, and he's exactly where he's supposed to be. He's played in 16 postseason games. He's 13-3, 4,561 yards, 67% completion percentage, 38 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 450 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns. That's league MVP season in the playoffs. Just, again, a ridiculous run from Patrick Mahomes. The Chiefs, lucky to have him. Who did they trade to get to the 10th pick? The Buffalo Bills. It's got to hit them rough for Patrick Mahomes to slay them in the playoffs 2 or 3 times in the last 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Patrick Mahomes is the guy just at this point knows how to win. He knows what it takes. That's why, during the regular season, you can watch the Kansas City Chiefs and if they struggle in the regular season, they don't get the home field advantage like you've seen them get the last few years. But once they get in the playoffs, it's kind of like having Tom Brady, right? For the New England Patriots. You just knew when the Patriots, even if the Patriots didn't win, they won 12 games in the regular season, they didn't get home field advantage or whatever. You knew Tom Brady was coming to town. You knew that the Patriots had a chance to win. You knew they were one of the better teams if they made it to the playoffs, which they did a lot with Tom Brady. So Patrick Mahomes is that transcendent figure in the NFL now where if Patrick Mahomes is on the field, his team has a chance to win. Period. That's it. And I think this is his best quarterbacking job of his career with this team this year because of the receiving core issues. The offensive line hasn't been completely great all year either, but Patrick Mahomes finds ways to get this team the AFC Championship. He's been a starter for 6 years. He's been to 6 AFC Championship games. That is just stupid to think about. And for as good as he was in college, but wasn't on a successful team because of the issues we know about. You could score 65, but you gave up 68.
Yeah.
He was this same guy in college. He just didn't get the notoriety because people chalked it up to, well, that's what Cliff Kingsbury's offenses do. That's what, the Mike Leach air raid stuff does is throw the football around. He's going to have a ton of yards. I don't think he's this great. But no, man, if you watched him every Saturday, you knew he was this great. You knew the kid makes plays. You know the kid wants to win. And you put him in the right system. You put him with one of the best head coaches in NFL history. And one of the greatest offensive minds in NFL history in Andy Reid. This team was built for success from day one with Patrick Mahomes. So, but that being said, it's so tough to win in the playoffs in the NFL, especially on the road, especially in Buffalo, who has one of the best quarterbacks in the league as well. And Patrick Mahomes and company find a way to get it done, man. Him and Travis Kelce have a big night, 2 touchdown passes to Kelce. Patrick Mahomes was 17 of 23 for 215 yards. Talk about consistent. Talk about precise. The ball's where it needs to be, when it needs to be there. Made the throws he needed to make. I mean, the QBR was what, 92 something?
Ridiculous, yeah.
That's unheard of, and especially in bad and not great weather either. Patrick Mahomes is him, as the kids say. There's just no debating it.
I would like to see some stats on Harrison Butker as a playoff kicker. He's got to be up there. He's got to be up there with Adam Vinatieri all time.
Yeah.
The dude's absolutely nails, and especially in a game where you see the other guy go wide right. You're very thankful for Harrison Butker, who has had his troubles. You go back to that 13-second drive. That only was needed because he missed an extra point and a field goal earlier in the game.
Yeah.
But game on the line, he nails it after the 13-second drive. So shout out Lupton Drinking Club, almost baseball season. We are less than a month away.
Yeah, less than a month.
February 17th? 18th?
I think that's right. Yeah.
Whenever it does. Again, we'll start talking baseball more and more as we go along. Maybe get the Lupton Drinking Club guys on the Rob Bro Show. Talk a little TCU baseball as we come up on another baseball season. We'll have to see. The Chiefs moving on. Now they'll play Lamar Jackson and the Ravens in the AFC Championship game. Of course, we'll talk about the game itself more later in the week, but I will say this. This is the matchup people want, right? Potential 2-time MVP Lamar Jackson versus 2-time MVP Patrick Mahomes. You keep trying to say the next Brady Manning is Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. They tried to say Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes. This is the first AFC Championship game for Lamar Jackson. I believe this is the first time the Ravens and Chiefs will play in the playoffs. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that true?
I didn't look that stat up. It could be.
I know they've played the Titans, the Texans, the Bengals, the Bills, and the Patriots. I don't know that they've played the Ravens yet in the playoffs.
Yeah, and it's not like the Ravens have been around for – we're not talking about the Baltimore Colts or anybody like that playing them. The Ravens haven't been around for a long time.
Not ever. I'm just talking about Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, Patrick Mahomes, yeah.
You haven't seen Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson in the playoffs. I don't
believe so. No. And you want to talk about two quarterbacks that are at the top of their game, Lamar Jackson, I think, is the MVP this year. Obviously, his team was the best team in the AFC. That helps. He was a better quarterback than Brock Purdy, whose team was the best team in the NFC. He was better this year than Patrick Mahomes' numbers for the most part.
Yeah.
His rating and Patrick, but if you look at their stat lines from last week, he was 18 of 22 for a $180 or something like that, 2 touchdowns. His QBR was 93.2 or something, jumped off the charts. So both quarterbacks are at the top of their game. Lamar Jackson adds one more wrinkle than what Patrick really wants to do. Patrick doesn't want to run it. Lamar Jackson's game is running the football quite a bit if they can get away with it. I think he rushed for 100 yards last week too. So it's going to be fun to watch these two dudes slug it out. And why not? This is what the AFC Championship game has been the last few years. It's been two great quarterbacks going head to head. With Joe Burrow and Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and all of these dudes that are young guys in the NFL that are your next kind of cream of the crop that are still in their 20s. It's crazy to think how good these guys are, and they're so young. Because you didn't used to see this a ton in the NFL because guys would get their first starting job at like 28. 29, right? They get in their prime of their career in their 30s, their early 30s. So it's a good time to be a young guy, a young quarterback in the NFL. These dudes have done a lot in their 20s, and I think this is one of the best quarterback matchups we've seen in the last 6 years that Patrick Mahomes has been a starting quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs, just because of that electric ability that Lamar Jackson gives you. It's like watching Mike Vick play. I'm trying to think who was a quarterback like this when Michael Vick was playing.
I think
maybe Ben Roethlisberger and Mike Vick playing each other back in the day. I don't know if they ever played each other in the playoffs. But
you're saying Big Ben is Mahomes?
Yeah, because he didn't want to run it, but he could run it a little bit. He was moving in the pocket and had a great arm.
Let's go Donovan McNabb.
That's fair. Donovan McNabb's better. Yeah, there you go. That's better.
Vic, Falcons, Eagles.
Yeah.
Matchup. I think Lamar Jackson's better than Michael Vick.
Wow. I don't know that he has the arm cannon that Michael Vick had, but yeah, he's
got that dog in him. Yeah, but Michael Vick closed his eyes and threw the ball. He didn't know where it was going.
It looks so good coming out of his hand, though.
Yeah, well, 70 yards opposite hash, he could do it, but he didn't know where it was going. Let's see. One other note. The Chiefs-Bills was the most watched divisional round playoff game ever. 50 million people tuned in. And Jason Kelce was more popular in the box than Taylor Swift.
Yeah, he's enjoying retirement so far.
Now, about that, he's not retired.
I know.
Did you see this? That they jumped the gun on that?
Shocker there. I mean, he hasn't said anything himself, so
yeah.
I
think he is retiring, but
what would be crazy is if he ends up getting signed by the Kansas City Chiefs this offseason and plays his last year with his brother. He's not going to be the center for the Kansas City Chiefs.
To play guard.
Yeah, to play guard. Yeah.
Can he play tackle?
Or just be on the roster. I don't think he'll play tackle. He's not spry enough to play tackle. But he could play right guard.
You don't need a right guard.
No, you don't. You don't. I don't know that you need anybody on the offensive line.
No, you got two. You got one of the best inside offensive lines. It would be awesome. It would be awesome to have him here if you needed him. Let's see. $50 million for a divisional round game. Michigan, Washington, the CFP final had half of that. They had 25.
I think there was 24 million that bought the Peacock game last week.
Yeah, which was the most streamed.
Yeah.
Unreal. Unreal. Okay. I don't really want to talk about Dak Prescott after discussing those two quarterbacks, but just really quickly, steam has picked up that the Dallas Cowboys, and this is all contract jargon, but they can conditionally turn some of the dead space money this year into bonus over the next 2 seasons to open up cap space. They've done it the last couple of years. He is $61 million in dead space this season. They will probably also get a extension done this offseason. It feels more and more likely. There's a no trade clause involved, so it's not like you can just go trade him. I want to prepare Cowboys fans. I told you 2 weeks ago that Jerry wasn't going to fire Mike McCarthy. You're in it long term with Dak Prescott. Nothing's different. Nothing's going to change. It's all the same. It's Groundhog Day. Prepare yourselves.
I mean, you're already paying Dak Prescott what $40 million a year is what it comes.
That's the contract number, yeah, over the course of 40 a year.
I don't know. That's what?
Yeah, that was the sorry, you froze, so I started talking. There was the 40 million a year, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know how much restructuring you're going to do in the contract or anything like that, but Dak Prescott's going to be the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, and Mike McCarthy's going to be the head coach for at least, I would say, another year or two, depending on how they do in the playoffs next year. Obviously, I think Mike McCarthy will go before Dak Prescott goes. Because the thing is, for me, and I'm nowhere near a Cowboys fan, but for me as a outsider, if you're the Dallas Cowboys, would you rather go with the guy that you know can be good and that has shown you he can be great at times as well? Or would you rather start all over again and try and find that guy who you think might be great, but you don't know anything about it yet? Like, that's where I am. If you're a Cowboys fan, what do you want? Because if you keep restarting the wheel, then it's just going to take you that much longer to retain or attain that success, unless you find a guy like a Patrick Mahomes, which nobody else is around right now that's played college football that's Patrick Mahomes. I mean, the Cardinals thought Kyler Murray was going to be the next, big name, big guy, and that just hasn't worked out because Kyler Murray's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not 6'6" and 200 plus pounds. He doesn't have the same arm. He doesn't have the same skill ability. He doesn't have the same football IQ that Patrick Mahomes has. He just doesn't. And he doesn't play on the same team. That's the main thing. So in the NFL, and I think the Dallas Cowboys have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, for sure in the NFC.
Sure. They're top 10.
But yeah. And so I don't think it's anything other than Dak Prescott. And listen, this was year one of him being Mike McCarthy in Mike McCarthy's offense. Maybe that takes a big difference next year where he's comfortable in the offense. They figure it out in the offseason and things run more smoothly next year. Look, the regular season this year was great, right? Other than a few snafus
at home.
Yeah, at home. But man, I don't know. I still stick by my synopsis of the Dallas Cowboys. They will never win a championship again until Jerry Jones is gone and Stephen Jones relinquishes a little bit of the rope. But until that happens, I don't know that they'll ever win another championship.
No, that's not going to happen.
And, yeah, I know exactly. So,
all right.
That is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. That's where we are with the Dak Prescott conversation. Family members talking out of their ass too. Tad Prescott going crazy. Micah Parsons has to speak out and say my brother doesn't speak for me. And then CeeDee's mom getting some run too. It's just a pardon my French, family show shit show in the Dallas Cowboys offseason world. And it is going to be a shit show next year. That's life of the Dallas Cowboys. Good thing I'm a
And that's
Texan.
just what it is.
Yeah. Good thing I'm a
It's
Texan.
always a circus.
All right. That's all I got today. We'll be back tomorrow to talk more Big 12 basketball. And then Friday, get into the NFL some more for the AFC, NFC championship games. Carson, anything else you wanted to cover today?
No, I'm
No.
fresh out.
All right. Let's do it then.
Peace.